Hello designers. I've created a tutorial here, kind of a demonstration for simple instructions. I want to keep this as simple as possible, but I do want to make sure I am starting off with a grid. In Photoshop, all you need to do is go under View Rulers to make sure your rulers are visible, and then you can drag a guide really anywhere you want to create your grid. I gave myself 1/4 inch borders all the way around. So I wanted to snap to here at 0.250. We got close enough there. 1/4 inch all the way around. And then I gave myself additional 1/2 inch borders on top and bottom to make sure my title block lives in a very functional place. So I'm going to turn off simple instructions. Oh, and I just kept dragging guides down to create these lines every inch. So 1/2 inch at the top and bottom and 1 inch throughout. You can bring additional guides over so we could go halfway. That would snap at 4.25. Also really nice. I'm going to do my simple instructions on how to do yoga. Right? I enjoy doing yoga, and while thinking about this, I thought about hand drawing downward dog and lizard pose, but I decided to be more type heavy on this, really focusing on the type that I was going to choose and kind of keeping it as simple and typography based as possible. So in order to kind of fit these in here, I created another one so I can show you here. What I did was pick a typeface. It is called Warmth. Very nice. I'm going to open up my character tab right here, and I can actually bring it over so that we can look at it. Here's where I find my typefaces. Here is the size, so I can slide right to make it bigger or smaller, and the leading, which is the amount of space between each line. I'm definitely gonna have to play with that. And over here is kerning, the amount of space between each character. These all look pretty good, so I'm not too worried about it. I do want to show you that my cursor turns into an arrow and I can move it around, but when I hover over the type, I've got a type tool. So here I'm going to just make this big enough that it fits nicely in that grid space, and we'll pop that down like so. We can make it a little bit bigger. That one is 71. Let's go up to 72. Looks great, but yoga's too tight, so we've got to fix that leading. So we select all of it, and here's my leading tool. I can slide the point size bigger to have more space or smaller to line it up. I think I'd also like to make the word yoga bigger because I'm going to always be taking hierarchy into account. The biggest thing should be the most important thing, and so yoga is our most important. So this looks pretty good. I like the way that feels, but it's too tight, right? That's not enough space between the two. So I'm going to go and increase my leading just a little bit, and I'm going to increase my leading until my midline of the font ends up on the next line of the grid. So check it out. Grids are there just to tell us where things should go rather than us guessing where they could go. So my midline of my font falls right here along that. Excellent. And you know what? It was a bit surprising, but when I see it now, it really does look good there. So I'm going to turn this one off. I've already got this one nicely placed, and I've got enough space at the top. It's not crowding, and it takes up this top title block with the most important thing, the biggest. Then I went and found some directions. Okay, same thing here, kept a same typeface. We could play around with maybe having this not be in a pure black, but in a really dark gray, just to kind of lighten up the vibe on it. I think it looks great. What I did here was each one of these, I moved the kerning around, the leading around so that the top of each of the caps, so the cap height of it is sitting at the top of each one of these. Pretty simple. If any one of them seemed a little bit off, I could use my baseline shift to raise them up or down. I could even drop this one all the way down or put it right in the middle maybe and make it bigger if I wanted. I kind of like the idea of ending with something being a little bit bigger like that. And maybe we move it over and put it directly on the edge there. We could play around with really anything you want, but I like the idea of that kind of being the end kind of exclamation point. Now that I look at it, it feels kind of weird being that low. So I'm going to use my baseline shift to raise it up so that the cap height is sitting just like the rest of them. I'm pretty predictable. All right, now we need some images. So I'm going to go to a Google search for yoga. We will always be clicking on image and then going to our tools. The two things we'll look at, we want to make sure we are getting large size image and using Creative Commons license. If I say all, I might fall in love with some of these images, but I will not be able to use them because they're other people's pictures. So I'd probably have to buy them or give them some credit. If I click on Creative Commons license, I've got plenty to choose from. And I know that all of these images are free for me to use. So we'll find something we think will fit spatially. And I'm not exactly sure which one I picked last time, but it did fit perfectly. But I'll delete my layer mask and show you exactly what I did. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and pan over. So I just copied and pasted this image in. Now what I'm going to do is while I have her up and active, I think that pose looks great. Let me put my character tab away because we're done with that. I'm going to make sure I'm on this layer and that it is not a smart object. If it was a smart object, there'd be a little rectangle denotating that there and I'd have to right click and rasterize it. But this one came over just as pixels. So I'm going to go under my fourth tool down, which is my quick selection tool. Now I could cursor around, but this is a pretty clean background. I'm going to let Photoshop work its magic by hitting this button at the top left, select subject. Let's see how it does. Looks great. Now there are some areas I'll probably want to clean up in her hand, but again, that's not really the focus of this. We're just filling the space with some imagery that will help bring some visual interest to our text. Now, all I need to do with this selection active is hit layer mask. Like magic, the background goes away, but if I do want to make any adaptations or changes, I can grab a brush tool, and that's a big brush tool, and brush the background in, or I can hit X, let's zoom in, to flip my foreground and background color and get a tinier brush, kind of a fun brush active, and brush out the areas that were not perfectly masked with Photoshop selection. Hit V, my move tool, and let's fit her into a space. That looks great. Looking at my edges, my margins, and everything else. I did it again with another image. I will delete my layer mask. Again, I just found a Creative Commons copyright-free image I like. I'm going to zoom in on this pose, hit my quick selection tool button. Let Photoshop make this selection. Now this one isn't as great, right? We've got the concrete in it. We're missing part of her foot. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of bump out that selection before we get started. I'm missing a little edge over there. Hold Option to push those pixels back in if I don't like it. And the rest I'm going to do probably after the fact with my brush tool because I want to be pretty particular about that. I see some space by her foot. But for the time being, this is close enough. Throw a layer mask on there by clicking my layer mask icon at the bottom of the layers tab. Voila, easy as can be. Now when I see this, I gotta tell you, I kind of like that concrete block at the bottom. If I didn't, it would be just fine and easy to get rid of it, but I don't know, I think I might keep it. Let me zoom in and fix this foot by going to my layer mask, hitting my brush tool, and just brushing it out with black as my foreground. I think I might have taken a little too much there. Just smooth that out. And if I do too much like that, hit X to flip my foreground and background color, brush it back in. Now this is also an easy way where if I did want to, I could easily come over here and get rid, I'm going to get a hard edged brush for that, get rid of the concrete like so. Easy as can be. I could brush this all out, or I could make a selection of it by grabbing my quick selection tool. I'm gonna have to zoom in on her again. Hit W, and we can just start deleting these bigger areas. Perfect. Probably should have done this from the get-go. I think sometimes I just like to brush. Let's zoom out a little bit. Command D to deselect. Get my brush tool. Oh, flip my background color. Let's get a nice big brush like so. I have kind of a weird brush. There we go. We can just soften up all those edges. Hit my square bracket, the left square bracket, to make my brush smaller. Soften those edges up, zoom out, make sure things look pretty good. We can stick that right there for our, line that up on that grid edge. So we have some selection up here that got highlighted in her. Now I don't know if I like her better sitting on that baseline or not. Maybe, I don't know. We could make it a little bigger. Let's see if we like that. Just gonna use my arrows to get her right up on that edge. I don't know, guys. I kind of liked it better with the concrete block on the bottom. So I can go to my history tab before I did all that brushing around. Let's see. There we go. I don't know. I gotta tell you, I kind of like that. Come over to my layers. I got to erase a little bit of that selection, but I think this looks pretty good. Last, before we do anything, go back and see how our text is working. Now that we've brought in this subject, I think we should probably raise that up and put it on the bottom there. Now, at any point, you guys are welcome to ignore your grid, do something else, and maybe we find kind of a yoga symbol. Let's look for a yoga symbol. Tools. Large. Actually, it wouldn't have to be large for this, but we just want Creative Commons license. I really liked that kind of flower symbol we saw. Oh, this isn't bad. Copy image, come over here, paste it in. And now we have just a little bit of interest at the bottom. We can make her a little bigger to fill that space. I really didn't like that space not having anything in it. Yeah, maybe zoom up just a little. Make sure she's sitting on the line too, like everybody else. This is more than enough for simple instructions. It's got a vibe, it's got images, and it has successfully used typography elements. Make sure you are starting with a grid, and when you're all done with it, feel free to go to Views, Rulers, turn them off, and Clear Guides. And now we can see not only where things could be, but according to a grid, where they should be. Good luck on your simple instructions.